Hello, book lovers. I'm Peg, back on my porch again this morning to talk about books and a little bit of knitting at the end. And this is my first week following my summer reading plan that I have set up for myself. I was beginning to feel like my reading was disorganized and I never knew what I was going to read or what I was going to finish, so I set up this challenge for myself for the summer to read every week certain kinds of books that fit certain challenges, and I've put that in the notes below so you can see what they are. It's possible to put several of them together. I don't really have to read 5 books a week, but so far it's worked out pretty good, so I thought I'd report on my first week of doing this. The first category I want to read every week is a new novel that's a new publication. And I go to my library very often, as you know, and I look on their news shelf and just am going to pick out whatever looks good from their news shelf. And this week I read The Ensemble by Gabel. Which turned out to be really interesting and good. The ensemble, in fact, refers to a string quartet of 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, who start out playing together in this quartet in college and remain together for many years. And one of the critics said it gives you the feeling of being inside the music of a quartet. I saw this a lot in the structure of the novel. Now, to talk about the structure a little bit, compare like a quartet, which usually plays what they call chamber music in a smaller, I mean, not in a concert hall, but usually a smaller place. And rather than have like one big instrument and lots of dramatic climaxes and loud things, you think of chamber music by an ensemble as being quieter, and there's more interplay between the 4 instruments. Each has their chance to kind of shine and be the soloist for a while, and there's a lot of like back and forth with each other in the music. And she actually based her story on this. As I said, the story was about these 4 people in the quartet as they grew and became more famous through the years. And it was I thought it was amazing the way she handled it. All 4 characters were equally important as they would be in a quartet, and there were times when they went off on their own and you learned something about them in their life. There were times when they played off each other, and then there were times when they all got together and the relationships between them. And it was just really well done, I thought. All 4 characters really came to life, and you could see the relationships between each of them. And actually, the author I read was a cellist in an orchestra, so you'd almost have to know quite a bit about music, classical music, to write this in the way she did. And I listened to several of the things they were playing to get a feel for it. So that was my new release. One of my other challenges is to read a collection or a short story every day. And in this one, I read all from one collection called The Island Dwellers by Jen Silverman. This also is a fairly new publication. The author, Jen Silverman, this is her first actually publication in book form. She's a playwright, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure how that translates to writing short stories or novels, but I really enjoy these. I don't really know a lot about short stories, or I'm not familiar with a lot of them. So that's why I want to spend the summer every week reading different short stories from different authors. And one of the critics of this one said that this was like flying over a city at night, each story a bright window in the darkness. And that's just kind of what I know I like about short stories, when they kind of give you a, what you might call, slice of life, or a view of somebody's life that you wouldn't see, even if you knew them. And this really did this. Many of the stories were of expats living in Tokyo and in tiny apartments and what went on. And it really showed the undertones of solitude and loneliness of living in a foreign country, and the change as you go on that you feel more at home there. I have encouraged Sean, who actually is a Canadian living in Tokyo, to read this and to see how realistic it seems to him. But I really did enjoy the stories, and some of them took place also in New York, again in small apartments and a view onto people's lives. Okay, next my challenge is to read an older book or classic even that has been on my TBR vaguely for some time. And in this case, I chose a book by Wallace Stegner. He wrote a lot from the 1940s to the 1960s. Actually, his last book was early 80s even. He had a very long career, has a lot of books out. And I knew he was a Western writer, wrote a lot about California and the West. So I started with The Shooting Star, which is probably not one of his main books, but I really enjoyed it. This in particular takes place on the Monterey Peninsula in California during the, I think, probably late 50s or 60s, so it was modern, about a very rich young woman who didn't quite know what to do with her life, and it went through a lot with her in trying to determine that. And I just love the way he writes. I love the way he established characters. I love the way he gives the setting of California and the feel and the vibes of the California weather. And I just decided this could be a possibility of a favorite author for me. Now, I noticed a lot of people on BookTube are declaring a favorite author and reading through all the works of that author. So this, Stegner might be in the running for my favorite author, especially if the other books are written as well as I felt like this one was. So along that vein, I decided to pick up a few other books by him to write. This one called Big Rock Candy Mountain I've heard of, but this is one of his earlier works, and it's semi-autobiographical, I understand. This one, called Angle of Repose, won the Pulitzer Prize in 1972, and he also won the National Book Award in 1977 for a work called The Spectator Bird. I don't have that one, but I'll probably get it. Anyway, so I may try to read like one of those each month this summer to kind of determine if he in fact will be my favorite author. Okay, the last two challenges I have put together in this case, and one of them was to read a novel from a prize list. As you know, I'm really into prize lists, and also to read a translated novel. So I combined those two in this week, and I read something from the International Dagger Award list, which I've given you the whole list in the notes so you can look over. These, I had talked about the Dagger Awards before, and there's quite a few different awards in it. The long lists were put out a couple weeks ago, and this is one of my favorite parts of the list. It's all deals with translations into English, and of course there are a lot of Scandinavian ones, but there's also French. I think there's a German one. Anyway, you can take a look at those yourself, but the one I chose to read was called The Frozen Woman by Jean Michelet, and it won the best crime novel in Norway, called the Riverton Prize, and it actually deals with a couple of police officers who are called to a estate where a woman, frozen and dead of course, has been found in the bushes at the home of a questionable lawyer who actually is a very left-wing, and he represents motorcycle gangs and things like that, and he's actually been in prison himself for murder. It's quite a little story here. It takes a little bit of sticking with it to get going, but It's really interesting. It's definitely noir and not a cozy mystery at all. So it really gave me a touch. I think I like translated novels because they don't follow the same formula as we're used to, and they all seem kind of different. If nothing else, the setting and the characters are really different than what I was used to. Okay, I do hope to read some more from this list. So take a look at the list if you're at all interested in international mystery crime types. Okay. Since my name, there's knitting in the name of my channel. I like to show a little knitting each time. Now, I don't have enough done on my rainbow wedding blanket to show you. I haven't done enough since last Sunday, I think it was, when I visited with another booktuber and showed it. And so I'm showing you today a shawl I knitted. Now, I like shawls quite a bit, and people kind of assume they're for old people. Well, I am an old person, but I think, they kind of have a fashion statement too, and especially in the colors I like to wear. Here's the shawl laid out with my books. I just took it so you can kind of see. It's kind of got a rainbow theme, and actually it's another cool rainy morning here. It feels quite good. Okay, that's it for I'm quite pleased with my new summer reading plan, and I'm already picking out the books for next week. So thanks for listening. Bye.